King Lear is about conflicts between fathers and their children. Lear has 3 daughters. One of them loves him, and 2 of them don't. He gets angry at the good daughter, Cordelia, and gives his kingdom to the 2 bad daughters, Goneril and Regan. Once they're in charge of the kingdom, the bad daughters are mean to Lear, and send him outside in a storm by himself. The other father is Gloucester, one of Lear's noblemen. He has 2 sons, Edmund and Edgar. Edmund, the younger one, is a bastard. Gloucester committed adultery, and Edmund was born out of wedlock. Because he's a bastard, the world looks down on Edmund as socially inferior. Edmund wants to change this situation, so he makes a plot to get rid of his brother and his father, so he can inherit Gloucester's money and title. At the beginning of the play, Gloucester introduces his son Edmund to a nobleman named Kent. Gloucester explains that Edmund is a bastard, and it's clear that Gloucester is embarrassed by always having to admit he had an affair. King Lear announces he's going to give up being king and divide the kingdom between his 3 daughters. He has the country all carved out on a map already, and he wants each of them to say how much they love him, so he can act like he's giving them portions based on who loves him the most. Goneril and Regan lie, and say they love Lear more than anything, as much as it's possible to love. But Cordelia, who actually does love him, won't do it. She says she loves him as much as she should love her father, no more, no less. Lear is furious with Cordelia. He tells her she's not his daughter anymore, and Goneril and Regan will divide up her portion. He announces he's going to keep 100 knights as his followers, and he's going to spend his remaining days visiting Goneril and then Regan for a month at a time. Kent tells Lear he's acting crazy and he should change his mind. Lear tells him to shut up, but Kent says he doesn't care what Lear does to him. Lear's making a huge mistake, and Kent is going to speak up about it. Lear tells him to get out of the kingdom. If he's caught in England again, he's dead. The King of France is visiting Lear, and he takes Cordelia to be his queen, even though Lear just disowned her. Edmund decides he's tired of being a second-class citizen just because he's a bastard, and he's going to do something about it. He forges a letter from his older brother, Edgar, suggesting that Edgar wants to kill Gloucester so he can inherit his lands. Gloucester tells Edmund to go find Edgar so he can explain the letter. Edmund does find Edgar, but he tells him Gloucester is furious with him, so he needs to hide until Gloucester calms down. Edmund hides Edgar in his own room. Lear is now at Goneril's castle. Goneril tells her chief servant, Oswald, that she's sick of Lear and his knights being at her house, and Oswald should make sure everyone gives Lear bad service. Kent doesn't leave the country as Lear had ordered. Instead, he disguises himself as a poor man, and shows up at Goneril's house, offering to be Lear's servant. Lear gives him a chance. Oswald is rude to Lear, turning his back and leaving when Lear calls him, and treating him like he's just Goneril's father, and not a king. Lear hits Oswald, and then Kent trips him, which makes Lear happy. Goneril confronts Lear, telling him that his followers are unruly and disorderly, which infuriates him. She dismisses 50 of them without even consulting Lear. Lear was expecting to still be treated like a king, so he's actually in tears after being treated like this. He tells Goneril she's a degenerate bastard and not his daughter, and he leaves with his followers to go to Regan's house. Goneril writes to her sister to warn her that Lear's coming, which prompts Regan and Cornwall to leave their house to visit Gloucester. Goneril's husband, the Duke of Albany, is upset that Lear left in anger. Edmund tells Edgar to run away, their father is coming. He calls for help, and before Gloucester arrives, he cuts himself, to make it look like Edgar tried to kill him. Regan and her husband, the Duke of Cornwall, arrive, because they left home to avoid hosting Lear. Cornwall tells Gloucester he'll use his resources to help arrest Edgar. Kent and Oswald get into a fight. Kent was sent ahead by Lear to tell Regan and Cornwall that Lear is coming. Oswald was sent by Goneril to warn them to avoid Lear. Cornwall, who's very hot-headed and angry, has Kent put into the stocks, to sit outside locked up all day and all night. This is a big deal because Kent is Lear's messenger, and no one would ever do this to the messenger of a king. Lear, coming to look for Regan and Cornwall, finds Kent in the stocks, and he's furious. He's even more furious to hear that Regan and Cornwall are tired and won't see him. Lear finally confronts Regan. He complains about Goneril, but Regan says she's on Goneril's side. Then Goneril herself shows up, and the 2 sisters say they won't let Lear keep even one servant. Lear leaves in tears, so angry that he's starting to lose his mind, and his daughters have the doors shut on him, even though it's night and a huge storm is coming. Lear is outside with just his fool, and no shelter from the storm. Kent finds him, and tries to lead him toward a hut. Gloucester shows Edmund a secret letter saying that an army from France has landed in Dover, England, and he says Cordelia has brought this army to make Lear king again. He says they need to be on Lear's side, even though it's treason against Regan and Goneril. He's going to go out into the storm and try to help Lear. After he leaves, Edmund says he's going straight to Cornwall to tell him what Gloucester is up to. Lear, Kent, and the Fool try to take shelter in a little hut full of straw, but Edgar is inside it, pretending to be poor Tom, a crazy beggar. Lear, who's going crazy himself, has a long talk with poor Tom before going inside. Edmund gives Cornwall Gloucester's secret letter, and Cornwall makes Edmund the Earl of Gloucester, meaning he gives Edmund Gloucester's title and property. So Edmund has succeeded in taking everything away from his father and brother. Gloucester finds Lear in the hut, and he tells Kent to take him to Dover to meet Cordelia's army. Gloucester goes back to his own house, and Cornwall arrests him for treason. Cornwall sends Edmund off to Goneril to tell her to gather her soldiers to fight Lear. Cornwall and Regan interrogate Gloucester about what he did with Lear, and whether he's on the side of the French, and then Cornwall gouges out his eyes. They tell him Edmund hates him, and he realizes he was tricked about Edgar. One of Cornwall's servants tries to stop him, and he wounds Cornwall with a sword before Cornwall kills him. Cornwall and Regan send Gloucester on his way, but Cornwall's wounded and will soon die. Edgar, still pretending to be poor Tom, sees his father and starts guiding him toward Dover. Gloucester wants to go there to throw himself off the highest cliff. Goneril is trying to get ready for war against Lear, but her husband, Albany, doesn't want to fight, since he thinks Lear is right and Goneril is worthless and horrible. Goneril herself would love to get rid of Albany, because she's fallen in love with Edmund. When she hears Cornwall is dead, she gets jealous of Regan, because she thinks Regan will try to seduce Edmund. She uses her servant, Oswald, to carry love letters to Edmund. Regan is in love with Edmund too, and she tries to get Oswald to show her Goneril's love letters. She tells Oswald to kill Gloucester if he can find him, because they should have killed him before. Edgar tells Gloucester he's at the top of a cliff, though he's actually not. Gloucester tries to throw himself off the cliff and lands on his face. Edgar pretends to be another person at the bottom, saying it was a miracle he survived the fall, and that a demon was at the top persuading him to jump. He does all this to make Gloucester stop being suicidal. Lear comes in and talks to them. Lear is insane, and Cordelia's soldiers are trying to catch him. Oswald tries to kill Gloucester, but Edgar kills Oswald instead. He finds on Oswald's body a letter from Goneril, in which Goneril promises to get rid of Albany and marry Edmund. Cordelia's followers have caught Lear and given him drugs to sleep to try to cure him. She wakes him up, and he apologizes. Just before the battle with Lear's forces, Regan tells Edmund she loves him, and he should stay away from Goneril. Goneril and Albany join them, and Edgar comes and hands Oswald's letter to Albany. He says that after the battle, if Albany wins, he should sound a trumpet 3 times, and a champion will appear to prove that the letter is true. What Edgar is talking about is trial by combat, a tradition that says if a knight is accused of something, he can fight with his accuser, and the winner must be right because God made them win. Edgar is accusing Edmund of treason, and he'll fight Edmund to prove it. Cordelia's forces lose, and Lear and Cordelia are captured. Edmund gives a captain orders to kill them in prison. Regan and Goneril start arguing over which one of them gets Edmund. Regan says she wants to marry him, but Albany says she can't, because his own wife has promised to marry Edmund already. He accuses Edmund of treason. Regan is getting sick anyway, because Goneril has poisoned her. A trumpet is sounded, and Edgar appears to fight Edmund and prove he's a traitor, as Regan is carried off. Edgar defeats Edmund, and Albany shows Goneril's letter to her. She runs off and kills herself. Edgar reveals his true identity, and Kent arrives on the scene. A servant brings the news that Goneril and Regan are both dead. Goneril stabbed herself after poisoning Regan. Edmund decides to do something good before he dies, so he tells them to go save Lear and Cordelia. Lear comes in carrying Cordelia. They were too late to save her. Kent tries to tell Lear that he was the loyal servant, but Lear's lost his mind again and doesn't understand. Lear dies, and Kent says he plans to join him soon. Edgar and Albany are the last people left to rule Britain. For more information about King Lear, check out the King Lear SparkNote at sparknotes.com. For a translation of the entire play into modern English, go to No Fear Shakespeare at nfs.sparknotes.com.